Hi, my name's Casey Johnson of the Legacy of Lakes Museum.
I am Amanda Simon with the Runestone Museum Foundation here in town.
Hi, I'm Brittany Johnson from the Douglas County Historical Society, here today to answer some of your guys' fun questions.
My favorite book for fun to read is Pride and Prejudice, but I do recommend a book called Death by Petticoat for anybody who wants some kind of history that's really accessible. It talks about things like the myth that women used to burn to death because their skirts would catch on fire, Death by Petticoat, or the myth that George Washington had wooden teeth. So it's a really fun and accessible book, and I do give it a recommendation.
So some of my favorite book recommendations, I don't know, there's so many good books. It's really hard to recommend just a few, but I know some that have really had an impact on me growing up were Nine Parts Desire and books like The Jungle. Those I think are all really good. Any books that really challenge you, I think are good books.
Ooh, okay, so if I have to pick a history-themed book, I'm going to say Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin is a really good one. It's all about the kind of behind-the-scenes work that went on during Lincoln's presidency and a lot of the different decisions they were made. Miss Goodwin she was a former White House correspondent, so she knows the ins and outs of being inside the White House. And so when she looks at this history, she uses that lens to kind of get some insight on why some of those decisions, which still baffle historians today, could have been made.
I think the common misconception is that they're boring. A lot of people, you go to a history museum and it's like, oh, it's just old stuff. Well, think about 200 years from now when people are looking at your artifacts from your life. Are you going to think that they're boring? It's definitely interesting because so many things have such fun stories behind them. I mean, you never know what you can find in a history museum from anywhere. So I don't think they're boring at all. I think that history museums are tons of fun, and it's like fun to discover people's dirty little secrets in some cases.
So I think a common misconception is that museums are in the past and stuck in the past. I think a good example of this is part of our mission statement at the Runestone Museum is to inform our future by preserving our past, and I think that's very true. I think we have lessons that we can learn that we can apply in today's culture and in our daily lives, and I don't think that should be lost on people. A really good example too are things that people think are stuck in the past. We have a really great Native American exhibit, and people tend to think of Native American culture as past culture, which is just absolutely not true. Minnesota recognizes 13 nations, and in our country alone, there's over 500 nations that are recognized that is current culture happening now.
I think a lot of people get the idea that history is all about memorizing dates, names, faces, and places, and to me it's really not about memorizing those types of things. It's about the storytelling. It's about understanding these past lives. It's about understanding how we got to where we are, even if we don't realize it. All of our existences are the sums of centuries of other people's decisions, and the story behind that is what brings me to history.
Do I only get one trip? I would go as many places as I could for brief periods of time, and only after I had been properly inoculated against like smallpox and all these things, because I do not want to die of a horrible disease. But I would try to go to Regency era England. I would love to go to medieval Norway. Just all these interesting places. I'd like to go to Pompeii before Vesuvius. That would be fun to see. But I would just try to go to as many places as I could if I had more than one trip.
That's a really tough one. I think I've been very intrigued by the Clara Kincaid diary recently. She wrote about coming to Minnesota in 1860, and I am very lucky to be able to walk to work, bike to work in the winter. I even snowshoe across Lake Agnes, And those are the quiet mornings and evenings that I wonder what it would have been like to be in Alexandria around that time. So you walked everywhere. Clara talked about walking 4 miles, 5 miles by herself to go fishing, to go mail a letter. And I just always really think about that because, especially in the winters on Lake Agnes, you can kind of get a little bit of a feel for maybe what it might have been like or what it looked like, because it's just very quiet. And, you know, I don't know, I guess that's probably where I would go back just to experience it and just to see what the landscape looked like, because I know it looked a lot different than it looks today. I'd just be very interested in that.
Ooh, okay, so that's a good one. I'm glad it's a time machine, because I always tell people I wouldn't necessarily live in the past just because I'm a fan of modern medicine. I would probably be one of those people who's just got to know the answer to some of these burning questions. Like, I want to cruise in on Stonehenge, kind of see what's up there, and then, you know, cruise on to the next big history mystery. The Easter Island heads would be really fun to find out about. I would really love to also just like look in on Polynesian cultures as they went from island to island and everything grew there. I find that fascinating.